2021 brought us a lot of great films that we're going to remember for years and years to come. But this is not the video for that, because today we're going to be looking back at the worst movies of 2021. Now, something to keep in mind, this is all completely opinion-based, okay? So there's going to be a lot of things that we might not agree on. If that's the case, awesome. I want to read your lists down in the comments below, okay? So without further ado, we're going to start off with the Dishonorable Mentions. Fast and Furious 9. I will use 9 words to describe this film. Car in space and dudes in mid-century diving gear. That should tell you everything you need to know about this movie. Coming to America. This is just an unnecessary sequel. All it has going for it is callbacks and cameos to the original and some funny moments. Overall disappointing. Shadow in the Cloud. Even though Chloe Grace Moretz gives a good performance, it's really hard to get over the unbelievability of the film. Cinderella. The performances and the concept they tried with the film are good, but the song choices, lack of originality, and overall story really hurts the film, making it really not a great experience. You know, as a big fan of Dear Evan Hansen, it really pains me to put this movie on this list. I will say that the performances were amazing, but where they really dropped the ball was how poorly they handled the story. If you guys saw my review on it on TikTok, you guys know how I feel about the story. It's kind of dangerous, and it is really not well done. They even brought back Ben Platt, and not even that could help the movie, you know? Not only that, the film was taken way too seriously, you know, as compared to the live show, which is so much more alive and energetic. This film felt just bleak and dark. If I had to sum up my thoughts, it would be this way. They had a wonderful opportunity, but they truly missed the mark. A late entry into this list, but necessary nonetheless. Barb and Star Go to Vista Del Mar tries to bring the same level of comedy that Austin Powers does, but in my opinion fails miserably. The film gave me 1, maybe 2 chuckles, at most, okay? The performances were really weak, albeit maybe intentional, but still really bad. You know, and they try to bring this message of the power of friendship, but it just ends up being extremely cringy. You know, and overall, I left the film thinking it was just meaningless and cringy. I'll sum it like that. Meaningless, cringy. You know, the trailers for House of Gucci really got me excited for this one, you know, and seeing the amazing cast that they were able to get for this one. I was really excited here. But man, does this movie disappoint. The problem here is that the movie is just boring. There's no other way to say it. It starts off strong and interesting, but it just slowly kept worsening and it never got better. By the time the movie ends, you're just left with this general feeling of eh. Although The Last Duel received a lot of praise by many critics and many people who saw it, and yeah, the story was really interesting, I really couldn't get over how unbearably slow this movie is. It takes a long time for the film to truly get interesting, you know, and as soon as it does, it moves to scenes that just bring back down the energy, you know, or bring the energy back down. You know, I don't regularly fall asleep during movies, but I was dozing off a lot during this one, you know. And I even saw people in the movie theater leaving because they just couldn't handle how boring it was. You know, I really wanted this one to be good because it seemed strong. You know, they had a good cast, a really interesting story, but they really couldn't grasp it. It really was not that great. You know what's my biggest problem with Don't Breathe 2? Is that they try to make a very clear villain the hero, but they weren't able to execute it well. Don't get me wrong, I love seeing villains becoming heroes. It's really interesting character development. But when you can't do it right and you still make a character super unlikable, you failed at that job, okay? I had a hard time connecting with any characters in this story because it essentially felt like villains versus villains, you know? And now, if you're watching a movie and the first thing that comes to mind is the first one was definitely better, there's a problem, you know? Normally, when you're watching a sequel, you want to have this mentality of like, ooh, that's pretty good. You don't even want to think about the first one. You're just thinking about the movie you're watching. This entire time, from beginning to end, I was just thinking the first one did that better. The first one was way more fun. The first one was way more scary. The first one was way more action-packed. The first one was way more entertaining. You know, the only thing I will give this movie maybe is its action. You know, it was entertaining, but the first one, by a lot, is a lot better than Don't Breathe 2. You know, I was really disappointed with the little things, you know? You would think that with an amazing cast, you know, with Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, Jared Leto, you know, you would think, yeah, this is going to be an amazing movie, you know? Well, it really wasn't. The entire story is just a complete bore. And it's a constant build-up to a unsatisfying ending, you know? And it's very, very slow in, you know, energy wise. There's literally no energy here, you know. And I compare this movie to one that has a similar vibe, Zodiac by David Fincher. Wonderful film. Zodiac is really slow, you know, and it's long, but it was so well done. I was so invested, you know, because the movie really never stopped being interesting, entertaining, and energetic, you know. Now, Little Things missed the mark with that. Overall, I really wanted Little Things to be good, and I tried. I paid attention. I tried to get invested in the story, but by the ending, I was just left unsatisfied. So now we reach an interesting point on my list. So all the movies that I've reviewed so far, I gave them a 2 out of 5. So from here on out is just movies that I thought were 1 out of 5. So these are top tier, worst of the list, okay? Starting off with do y'all remember the movie Trainwreck starring Amy Schumer? Well, I do, because the reason I saw that movie was because LeBron James was in it. Here's the thing. He was really good in that movie. Incredible performance from his part. So when I watched Space Jam: A New Legacy, I said, you know what? This should be fun. It wasn't. This is just another classic Hollywood example of what happens when you bring back a franchise just to get money, you know? And I hope they did, because this movie had enough product placement, Looney Tunes, and other intellectual property to literally call it Ready Player 2, okay? Not a great time. Not a great time. You know, disappointing doesn't really begin to describe how I feel about Malignant, okay? Yeah, it had an interesting concept, but the execution was just horrible, okay? Performances were bland at best. The writing was very cheesy. Oh my goodness, cheesy. Pacing was extremely slow, okay? This film took itself way too serious, but by the end of the movie, it just feels like a really bad joke was made into a movie. Now, I have to talk about the third act, because something happens in the third act that makes this whole movie feel very different, tone-wise. Because all of a sudden, this movie takes a sharp left turn, and it turns into John Wick with horror elements inside of it, you know? And it was fun, I'm not gonna lie. I enjoyed myself watching that scene. But the problem is that the performances and the writing problems are still there. So, even though that third act is kind of fun to watch, it still feels very dull and very bland. All that being said, the reality is that this movie was just a bonkers crap show that not even that third act could save. And what upsets me the most is that one of my favorite directors, James Wan, was the one helming the project. Yikes. You know, I believe that once you've seen a Melissa McCarthy movie, you've essentially seen most of them, you know? They have this similar style of comedy, you know? You either get, well, you get one of three. You either get forced comedy, physical comedy, or cheesy comedy. And if you're lucky, you get them all in one package, like Thunder Force. You know, I really don't know what I was expecting, if I'm being honest, you know, but this movie was really bad. I really couldn't think of any enjoyable thing in this movie. You know, the acting was incredibly cringy, the story was super boring, and the comedy wasn't even funny, you know? And what makes it weird, or what makes it feel strange and out of place, is that Melissa McCarthy can do outstanding work. If you haven't seen Nine Perfect Strangers on Hulu, I highly recommend it. You know, she did a fantastic job there. And Octavia Spencer, she is a wonderful actress. So this film should have been good. So what the heck happened? I don't know, but it really wasn't. Guys, we made it to my number one worst movie of 2021. This movie came out really early in the year, and, well, I won't make you wait anymore. You know, when I was watching Lockdown, I was so incredibly bored that I just sat down and started writing my thoughts on my phone because I was trying to review the movie, right? So here are just some of the things that I wrote down. 20 minutes in, and I am very bored. A very depressing movie. You know, for such a well-known cast, the performances are very dull, no excitement, nothing special. 30 minutes in and I'm still very bored. 50 minutes in and I'm still bored. You know, I appreciate the movie trying to be authentic to what happened to most of us in 2020. You know, being in Zoom meetings and the mental and physical toll that quarantine took on us. But the movie is so boring. There's really not that much enjoyment in this film. I will say that once the conflict of the movie comes into play, it gets slightly more enjoyable, but that's like an hour into the movie after you've been watching this depressing movie. There were moments where the film tries to be funny, but I really didn't find it amusing at all, you know. And after all of this, literally in that conflict, Anne Hathaway's performance starts getting really exaggerated, which really affected the experience for me. So the only thing that I was enjoying ended up dying as well. So in the end, the film is about a middle-aged separated couple that find a way to perform a heist during the 2020 lockdown. But because of its extremely dull performances, the boring story, and those weird choices that they did in between, comedic to dramatic to depressing, whatever you want to call it, the movie is just bad. The worst one by far of the year. Please don't watch it. It will only hurt you. So that's that. That's my list for the worst movies of 2021. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making this video. Please make sure to follow and subscribe to my channel. It helps a lot, and ring that notification bell so you can get notified every single time I post a video. And be on the lookout because my top 10 best movies of the year is coming out really soon. So all that being said, again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.